I'm also a life professed lay associate of the Trappist monastery here in Georgia. So my personal kind of spiritual direction style, I guess, is kind of a hybrid between Ignatian and Cistercian. But I'm also very much informed by the mystics because I continue to study the mystics. As you know, I've written several books about the mystics and about the gifts that they bring to us. And so it's just been a great journey. And I feel incredibly privileged to be able to share, obviously, not only my own story like I'm doing with you right now, but in the spiritual companionship arena, to be invited into other people's sacred stories. And, as you know, spiritual accompaniment is a listening ministry. So it is just, a tremendous honor to be able to hear people share their stories. And really, that's who the mystics are. The mystics are the great storytellers in terms of contemplative spirituality over the centuries. And so obviously there are some mystics that are easier to relate to than others. But that's part of the fun, is to connect with these, receive these great stories, and then discern, which ones continue to speak to us, which ones have something to say here in the 21st century. Well, there are a number of people, I don't know who said it first, but I know Brother David Stendhal-Ross did say this. He wasn't the only one, but the idea that the mystic is not a special kind of person, but each person is a special kind of mystic. So yes, you can call me a mystic, but you're a mystic too, Stephen, and so is everybody listening to this podcast. And that so it's not a question of how do I change myself to become a mystic. It's more a question of how do I listen deeply to my own sacred story, seeing the unique way in which I am called into the mystery. And so why should I care about Julian of Norwich's story, or Meister Eckhart's story, or the Cloud of Unknowing story, or John of the Cross, Teresa of Avila, Merton, Teilhard, Simone Weil, et cetera, Howard Thurman? Because number one, their stories are their stories. So it's just the joy of learning how the divine has moved in the lives of other people from other cultures or other times. But there's always these moments of resonance, and seeing how Julian of Norwich struggled with, some of the teachings of the institutional church sheds light on my struggle with the institutional church 600 years later. And I think at the end of the day, we are all looking for, for how our story calls us into who we most truly are. As it Merton talks about the true self, this idea of who am I authentically created to be? That wonderful story about Rabbi Zusia, who was so worried that when he dies, God would ask him, why weren't you more like Abraham, or why weren't you more like, Joseph or whatever? And and all God really wanted to know was why weren't you more fully Zusia, and the same thing. So how can I be more fully Carl? How can you be more fully Stephen? How can each one of us embrace the authenticity of who we're called to be? And so we read the mystics not to conform ourselves to their stories, but so that their stories can inspire us to more truly tell our own.